My name is Lana, and I'm a fan of sensual stories and explicit movies. I've put together a collection of the best stories that I'm sharing with you. Now, we're going to listen to a very special one. Let's go! On my last summer break, before joining the real world, between my junior and senior year in college, I decided to go home. I would be graduating next year, and I felt I had not spent much time at home since I left a few years prior. I wasn't exactly on the 4 years and out of plan. I would always visit for the holidays, but every summer I would find a job and stay in the same town I was attending college. However, this summer I wanted to spend time with my family, especially my little sister. I arrived home on a Friday night and hung out at home most of Saturday. On Sunday, Jenny and I had already made plans to go hang out at the local amusement center for some miniature golf, go-karts, and just get a chance to hang out and get reacquainted. She had invited her best friend from forever, Abby. They were inseparable from the first time they met each other. Over time, we had learned that Abby never knew her father and her mother had a revolving door of boyfriends. I suppose our home gave her some sort of stability. When I first got home, I had noticed that Jenny was certainly not a little girl any longer. I couldn't help but notice that she was filling out quite nicely. She was now 5'3", and her breasts were between an A and B cup, with hips that were starting to flare out nicely with a thin waist. She had always had nice full lips that looked even nicer now that she was allowed to use a minimum amount of makeup. Sunday morning, we jumped into my Ranger truck and swung by to pick up Abby. My sister was wearing cute shorts and a tight tank top that nicely showed off her growing breast and part of her tight, smooth tummy with her belly button on display. Whenever I meet the person that invented crop tops, I will kiss their butt. I love the way girls look in them. They get an extra 10 points in the sexiness factor, so long as her tummy is taut. Crop tops, like leggings, are a privilege and not a right. I had to constantly remind myself that she was my baby sister when I caught myself urging her. When Abby came running up to my truck, I was shocked. She too was wearing shorts, only they were tighter and shorter than my sister's. Her tight little butt looked great. She had filled out more than Jenny. Her breasts were a nice full B cup that were covered also by a tank top with no bra that covered only half her tight tummy. Her hard little mamillas were in full display. Even as a little girl, I always thought she was a cutie. But now she was looking even nicer. My sister scooted over and Abby jumped in. She said hello as she entered, and we were on our way. She was very talkative, asking me how was college and was I enjoying myself. She asked if I had a girlfriend, and when I told her not any longer, she flirtiously told me she could be my girlfriend if I wanted. My sister immediately blurted out, "You don't have to flirt with every guy you meet." They both busted out laughing, and we soon arrived at the amusement center. Strange how she and I barely spoke when she was younger, but now she couldn't stop talking. I actually had fun hanging out with two girls. That they were hot-looking was a bonus. I was enjoying the eye candy along with most of the guys at the amusement center with their breasts and legs on display. It was obvious they were good for each other. My sister was the calm, sane one, and Abby was the wild, crazy one that needed to be brought back down to earth ever so often. Throughout the day, Abby continued her flirtatious comments, telling me how good looking I was, and that if I asked her out, she would agree to go out with me in a heartbeat. I played along, telling her how cute she was and that I was surprised she didn't have a boyfriend with such a cute little butt. This would prove to me mistake number one. We finally called it a day and jumped back into the truck, with her jumping in before Jenny and sitting next to me. I was a bit excited and hoping she would notice that I actually had a partial erection. I knew nothing would happen between us, but I suppose all her attention had gotten to me and my ego. Plus, her hard little mamillas didn't help. I looked over to Jenny, and she just rolled her eyes. She was used to Abby's daring behavior by this point. When we arrived at Abby's, Jenny got off to let her out. Abby turned and kissed me on the cheek before leaving, saying thank you for a great time as she winked at me. As we drove home, my sister warned me, telling me, "You know, she really likes you. She told me she thought you were cute and she wouldn't mind being your girlfriend." When we went to the restroom, I told her that I assumed she flirted with all the guys she met and I was simply her victim for today. She was cute, but she was also way too young for me. Either way, Jenny told me to be careful. I had gotten home at the end of May, and Jenny and Abby still had a couple of weeks to go before their summer started. I sat around the following day, and the very next day I was out looking for a job. It was boring sitting around with no one to talk to. Jenny was at school, and Mom and Dad were at work all day. By the end of Tuesday, I had rejoined the workforce security, a job at a grocery store. An old high school buddy worked there, and he voted for me the store manager. I was hired on the spot and asked to report the next morning at 7 a.m. It was part-time, but a great way to get some extra cash and kill time during the week. Come Saturday, Jenny had asked if I could drive them to the mall. She and Debbie would be meeting up with some friends. I told her it was not a problem as my shift did not start until 5 p.m. We swung by Abby's and headed to the mall. It worked out fine for me as I had to pick up some jeans and a new pair of sneakers. They went their way and I went my way, with plans to meet at the food court around 3 p.m. I went off and, like a typical guy, I was done with my shopping within an hour. I arrived at the food court half an hour early and waited for the girls so we could eat before heading home. When they arrived, Abby was excited to see me and came up to hug and kiss me on the cheek, asking me, "Did you miss me?" as she sat on my lap. I looked over and Jenny simply rolled her eyes. We went over and grabbed lunch before sitting down, with Abby sitting right next to me. I was certainly enjoying the special attention she was giving me. While we were sitting, I suddenly felt Abby caressing my thigh under the table and remembered being warned to be careful with her. I turned my head to look at her, and she simply kept eating and did not bother turning to look at me. I quietly reached down and removed her hand. I was not trying to get myself in trouble. When we returned to the truck, once again, it was Abby sitting right next to me. On the way home, her hand casually fell on my thigh, and I decided not to do anything. I wanted to see how far this girl was willing to go. It went further up than I would expected. Her hand was making its way to my crotch when I finally decided to quietly move her hand away without my sister noticing. We got to her place, and both girls got off. Jenny had made plans to spend the night and asked if I could pick her up the following day. I was not scheduled to work on Sunday and told her I would. We hugged and kissed before I left. Of course, Abby also hugged and kissed me on my earlobe, whispering into my ear, "I'll see you tomorrow, lover boy," with a big smile on her beautiful face, before they both made their way up the stairs to Abby's apartment. That little girl gave me a chubby. I raced home, showered, and left for work, where I ended up working an 8-hour shift due to some people calling out sick. I got home late and went straight to bed. As much as I wanted to ignore what was happening with Abby and just brush it off as a joke, it had me wondering. Was she simply flirting because that was her nature? Or was she trying to get something started? She was definitely trouble. She was an exciting little girl with a pair of great-looking breasts and a tight little butt that filled out her shorts very well. Her legs looked great on her, and she had a cute face with nice lips and hazel eyes. She was probably about 5'2", with long brown hair down to her ass, and weighed maybe 110 pounds. She was a nice little package. As I laid in bed, thoughts of her kept me from falling asleep. I started wondering what she looked like naked. My D was hard, and my boxers were down by my ankles as I started stroking it, thinking about Abby. I imagined her naked on her knees. I was grabbing her hair and pulling her to me. This little girl was going to be my demise. The following weekend, my parents and sister had plans to spend the night out of town. My mom's younger sister had given birth to her 5th baby, and my mom and Jenny were dying to go to see the baby, as if they hadn't seen the first 4. My dad went along because my mom told him he was going. I had to work on Sunday and was saved from the 3-hour trip. My plans were to mow the lawn on Saturday, take a nap, shower, and go hang out with some friends from high school. There was gonna be all sorts of people from our class, and I was excited to catch up with some of them. I finished the backyard first. As I was working on the front lawn, I saw Abby stepping out of a car before it quickly drove off. She was looking effing hot. She had a very short skirt that I'm sure would show her panties if she bent over, and a tight top that was showing off her perky breast and her hard little mamilla. I was shirtless, only wearing shorts and my sneakers. As sweaty as I was, she came up and gave me a peck straight on my mouth, saying, "Hi, lover boy, where is Jenny?" She knew damn well that Jenny was gone for the weekend. I played along and told her she was gone for the weekend, asking her if Jenny had not told her. She suddenly remembered and asked if I could give her a ride home. I told her she would need to wait until I was finished. She kept me company as I finished the yard, following me around, and asked if I liked how she looked, telling me she had dressed up extra nice for me. I told her she looked very pretty in her outfit, and if she was older, I would probably ask her out. Something I've never should have said. This was mistake number 2. I'm sure it gave her more confidence in what she was about to do. I finished the yard and we went inside. I fixed up some sandwiches and we had lunch, with her relentless flirtatious comments on what a good girlfriend she would be for me. Thoughtlessly, I asked what she would do to be such a good girlfriend. This was now mistake number 3. Of course, in baseball, this is it. When she started talking about oral love, I cut her off and told her I would be taking her home after my shower. This would be the nail in the coffin. After exciting the shower, I walked to my room to find her sitting on my bed. All kinds of scenarios came to my head, which caused a very noticeable tent in the towel wrapped around my waist. I asked what she was doing in my room and, unconvincedly, told her to leave. She looked at my crotch and asked if I really wanted her to leave. I was not thinking straight as she approached to me. She looked so sexy with her glossy lips, the same ones I had fantasized about. You know, if you were my boyfriend, I would take the real good care of you, she said as her little hand slowly reached into my towel as she grabbed my stiff D. Her words and actions were hypnotizing, and I was losing control. She started stroking me nice and slow, telling me in a very seductive voice, if I was your girlfriend, I would always dress nice and exciting for you. I just looked at her, enjoying her little hand stroking my D under my towel. Her hand was not able to completely wrap around my D, and that made it hotter. She fell to her knees, and with both hands she undid my towel and let it drop on the floor. Next is going to be an overly explicit segment that I'm skipping due to YouTube restrictions. In the video description and in the comment section, you can find links to the full version of my stories in my Telegram channel, Lana Tales. I stood there for a minute or two, wondering what had just happened. My sister's BFF had just given me head. How could I be blamed? She was the aggressor, and I was the victim. Wasn't I? However, I chose to let her continue and never tried stopping her. I was enjoying watching my fantasy play out with her little hands on my D. I was enjoying it too much, watching her glossy lips wrapped around into her little mouth. Finally, I snapped out of my confused state and got dressed. I walked to the living room to find Abby sitting there quietly waiting for me. Her legs were slightly separated, offering me a nice view of her little white panties. I asked if she was ready to go, and she said she was. For some reason, I felt compelled to go to her side and open the door for her. She jumped in and turned to me saying, "Thank you, lover boy." I shook my head and walked around to get in my stuff. "You taste yummy," she said as I started my truck. I immediately turned it off and told her we need to talk. I told her that what happened could not happen again. She was my sister's friend and she was way too young for me. "I don't remember you stopping me," she answered as she reached out to grab my D. Of course, it felt nice, and I didn't move her hand away. "We can be secret lovers. No one would ever know, and I'll never tell anyone, not even Jenny," she said as she squeezed my D that was now stiff as a brick. I didn't agree to it, but I also didn't give her a firm no. Her proposal was very tempting. The thought of having someone to give me head on demand was very tempting. She had done a good job, and I can only imagine her getting better over time. I turned on the truck and drove her home in silence, with her offer playing over and over in my head. On the way over, she had slowly started making her way closer and closer to me. When we arrived at her place, she was sitting next to me. I turned to her to tell her we could not be together when I felt her lips on mine. She was very bold and daring. Her lips felt soft, and I simply kissed her back. Her little tongue felt so nice dueling with my tongue when I pushed it into her mouth, with her hand grabbing my D the whole time. Somehow, I managed to come to my senses and told her we had to stop. She gave me a quick peck and left my truck. I drove home and stayed in my truck in the driveway for several minutes, wondering what the F was I going to do with her. Was I in trouble if I didn't along with her offer? Was she going to tell Jenny? Or worse, her mom? Would she tell my parents and I would end up getting kicked out of the house? Eventually, I went in and took a nap, another shower, and left to the get-together that soon turned into a party. The party was a blast. It was great catching up with old friends, especially some of the girls. It was funny how a lot of the roles had reversed. The hot girls from the in crowd already had a kid or two, gained weight, and not looking so hot, when the quiet nerds were looking hot. The thing was, I couldn't get out of my head what had happened with Abby earlier in the day. As much as I tried talking to some of the girls and trying to hook up, I felt like I was cheating on her. What the F? I stayed at the party until about 2 a.m. before I headed home, alone. I was feeling tired and decided to watch some special video before going to sleep. I ended up closing my eyes, picturing Abby kneeling in front of me. Whoa! I cleaned up the mess, closed my eyes, and started thinking on how much trouble I was already in. I would definitely not be able to resist her if we ever found ourselves alone. Jenny and my parents were back Sunday night. My parents were tired, so they went to their bedroom to shower and got to bed early. Jenny stayed up watching TV with me while texting on her phone. She asked if anything special happened while she was gone. Oh shit, did Jenny already spill the beans? I casually answered no, other than her annoying little friend coming by to harass me. She started laughing, telling me that she could be annoying at times. I told her I fed her and then took her home. I was still not sure what Abby had really told her, but I was not about to admit anything. She told me that Abby definitely had the hots for me and asked if I thought she was pretty. I decided to go with the truth. Yes, I said, she's very pretty and has a nice tight body. I told her that if she was a classmate, I would definitely be interested. Then quickly changed the channel and the subject. During the following week, I worked on both Monday and Tuesday and had Wednesday off. I asked Jenny if she was up for anything. She said she and Abby had been wanting to see a teen chick flick about werewolves and vampires that had recently came out and was wondering if I would be willing to go. My goal that summer was to spend more time with her, so I agreed. The movie was for 3 p.m. Around 2 p.m. we jumped into my truck and swung by Abby's before heading to the movies. Same as last time, Abby was wearing a short skirt and a tight short that she tied below her breast, showing off her tummy. She looked good. We bought our tickets, grabbed some popcorn, and walked into the cinema. Yes, you guessed it. I had a girl on either side. The lights went out and the preview started. Also, Abby's hand came to rest on my thighs and started caressing. I knew my attempts to stop her were futile. I simply needed to let her go until she was done with her teasing. Her strokes on my thigh were going higher and higher, and my D was getting uncomfortably hard. I slowly turned to see if Jenny was looking our way, and luckily she was not. She was focused on the screen. Abby leaned over and whispered in my ear, "I love your D," as she started stroking it over the jeans. I tried placing the popcorn tub over my crotch to help hide her hand. Even then, if Jenny would have looked down, I'm sure she would have seen everything. Abby had me so worked up, and I was struggling, trying to keep my breathing under control and trying not in my pants with my sister sitting there next to me. After a while, I could not stand it any longer, and I casually moved her away. I looked over to give her a stern look, but she was looking up at the screen as if everything was fine. I turned my head back to the screen, trying to figure out the plot, when she grabbed my hand and placed it on her deliciously smooth thigh. Oh, she felt so nice. She grabbed my hand and slowly started dragging it up and down her thigh. It felt like she was dragging my hand higher and higher on her thigh until I felt it. Next is going to be an overly explicit segment that I'm skipping due to YouTube restrictions. In the video description and in the comment section, you can find links to the full version of my stories in my Telegram channel, Lana Tales. After that moment, we started a little game of grab butt. Whenever she was visiting Jenny, which was always, we would drive each other crazy, grabbing each other inappropriately. She would walk by in front of me as her hand caressed my D, or I would come up from behind and grab her butt when no one was looking, which was easy when my sister was somewhere else in the house and my parents were at work. She had a nice butt that felt nice and full in my hand. It drove me crazy when she would wear leggings, showing me exactly how nice her butt really was. On the occasion, all three of us were in the living room, binge-watching one of their girly shows. By this time, Jenny was used to Abby and me openly flirting. I was sitting on the couch, and Abby was sitting next to me, leaning up against me, as if she was with her boyfriend. Jenny looked over and didn't even bother rolling her eyes. She reached for a blanket for herself and threw one our way. Abby grabbed it and arranged it so it covered us below the waist. As I was hoping, her hand very quickly went for my D. It was late and we were all in our pajamas. Jenny was in an old t-shirt of mine. Abby was in cotton shorts and a tight t-shirt that nicely showed off her mamilla with no bra. I was wearing some loose baseball shorts with no underwear, hoping it would prove to be helpful. She slipped her hand under my waistband and grabbed my D. This little vixen loved playing with my D, and I was enjoying every minute of it. She reached in and pulled it out while pushing down my shorts. She was stroking slowly, more so because it felt nice. She was holding it and stroking it as a little girl holds on to something that is hers. She was laying claim to my and I was okay with that. I had no idea what was going on with the show, and I didn't care. My eyes were closed as Abby did her thing. Before long, I heard Jenny as she started lightly snoring, and we both looked over at her. Her head was slumped back on the sofa while she snored. What Abby did next scared the shit out of me and excited me simultaneously. She pushed off the blanket that was hiding my D. There I was, sitting on the sofa with my D in her little hands for anyone to see. She got on her knees, completely pulled my shorts off, and took my D into her deliciously warm, wet mouth. She was on her knees with Jenny asleep 3 feet away from us. She could wake up at any minute. I would literally be caught with my shorts down. Abby started bobbing her head, and her hands also started stroking me in rhythm with her mouth. The first time she gave me an oral kiss in my bedroom, it felt good more because of the circumstances of being surprised. But this time, she was really going at it. She managed to get more in her mouth than last time. I would later find out that she had done her homework on YouTube to find out how to give a good kiss. She was proving to be a good student. She was doing everything right. She was caressing my balls. It felt so nice. This was all being done by Abby, the girl I had known forever as my little sister's best friend. I was struggling trying to keep from moaning to avoid waking up my sister. Abby could probably sense I was very close. She started bobbing her head even faster. I didn't hold back and could not warn Abby without waking up Jenny. What she did next caught me off guard. She took off her shirt and cleaned up the mess. I was seeing her gorgeous breast for the first time. Wow! She gave me a coquettish smile before she ran off to Jenny's room, only to come back wearing a different top. She went over to wake up Jenny and take her back to her room. A few nights later, Jenny and Debbie were cuddling on the couch, and this time I was alone on the other end. Again, we were watching some movie about a love triangle, and I was starting to doze off when I felt the couch move. Abby was helping Jenny stand up as they turned off the TV and walked off to bed. I assumed I would be going to bed that night when I saw Abby walking back to me. She straddled me and we started kissing right away. This gorgeous little girl felt perfect on my lap. Next is going to be an overly explicit segment that I'm skipping due to YouTube restrictions. In the video description and in the comment section, you can find links to the full version of my stories in my Telegram channel, Lana Tales. We cooled it down for a bit. That was a wake-up call for both of us. We still flirted with each other, but the touching and the late-night shenanigans were put on hold. I was talking to my mom one morning before heading off to work, and she made a comment that reminded me to be careful. She pointed out the fact that most of my free time was spent with the girls, telling me that they were young ladies and I needed to watch myself around them, especially Abby. Mom didn't want me spending so much time with them, explaining that Abby would start developing a crush on me. Too late, Mom, I thought to myself, recalling Abby on her knees. I assured her I would be careful, reminded her that the purpose of me coming home was to spend more time with Jenny. A couple of weeks after we were almost caught in the living room by my dad, my parents told us Dad had to fly out to his company's corporate office for some sort of meeting, and they had encouraged everyone to bring their spouses. The meeting was to run from Monday to Wednesday. My mom asked for the time off and she would be joining him. Right away, Jenny and Abby started shamming and nicely asked my parents that if I agreed to chaperone, could they have a party with only a few friends. Some negotiating went on back and forth as to what a few meant. What time would everyone be leaving, who could spend the night, and all the other details that would make Mom and Dad feel comfortable. My parents actually went out to purchase an above-ground pool for the party. They left Saturday morning to have some time to themselves before the meeting started on Monday morning. The party was also scheduled for that same Saturday. Everyone started showing up around 1 p.m. My parents had originally approved the party for no more than 5 people. I secretly told her to invite up to 10. 5 girls and 4 boys showed up. It was interesting to see the girls dressed up in some revealing bikinis, with the boys spending most of their time in the pool, staring at the girls. I'm sure they were hiding something that would have embarrassed them. The girls were actually looking really good. One of the girls actually seemed to have tits bigger than Abby, but she was also a bit on the heavy side. Abby had the sexiest bikini. I actually surprised myself by constantly checking out Jenny. She too had a bikini that looked great on her. At times, I noticed her hard little mamilla, and her ass was just as nice as Abby's. I hung out for a bit before I got the grill going. Thanks to my sunglasses, I enjoyed checking out the young ladies as I grilled the burgers. They were soon hungry, and everyone came to collect their food and grabbed a seat to have lunch. Everyone really seemed to having a great time. I helped clean up and then made myself scarce. I didn't want to come across as the creepy older brother that was checking his little sister's friends. When the swimming was over, I heard them coming into the house to watch a movie. Nobody was ready to go home. A couple of the girls had already made plans to spend the night, but most would be leaving. After a while, it got quiet, and I felt obligated to go see what was happening. Most in the group were playing spin the bottle, but there were 2 couples making out on the couch. I saw no harm in it and made my way back to my room. It was past 11 p.m. when the party finally ended. Jenny, Abby, and the 2 other girls laid out blankets on the sofas or on the living room floor and started dozing off, watching TV. Abby was looking effing hot in a pyjama set with small tight shorts and with a tight tank top. I said goodnight to them and went to my room. I turned on the TV in my room and started watching a rerun of Die Hard. Around 2 a.m., I heard my door open and I knew exactly who it was. Took you long enough? Sorry, the girls kept talking and I wanted to make sure everyone was asleep. We didn't waste any more time. We both knew why she was in my room, and we had not been together in over 2 weeks. We were desperate and horny. Ever since we had started hooking up, I had not been with anyone else. Subconsciously, I started seeing her as my secret girlfriend. She wasted no time. She closed and locked the door behind her before she walked to my bed. With a bashful look on her face, she hesitated before slowly taking off her tank top and shorts. It was such a wild turn-on knowing she was ready for me when I noticed she wasn't wearing underwear as she removed her shorts. It was such a perverted sight with this girl standing there in front of me naked and looking so innocent with beautiful breasts and a bald kitty. She had actually cleanly shaved her just for me. Whatever we did was going to be of her own doing. She was completely naked when she jumped into my bed and crawled over and laid on me. She was the perfect size and felt so good as I wrapped my arms around her and landed on her delicious full butt. I had gone to bed wearing only a pair of shorts. The skin-on-skin contact as her tits pushed up against my chest was electrifying. We started making out, with her telling me that she was happy we were finally alone, so I could love her. Next is going to be an overly explicit segment that I'm skipping due to YouTube restrictions. In the video description and in the comment section, you can find links to the full version of my stories in my Telegram channel, Lana Tales.